Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Tom Wells here. Today is Friday, September the 7th, 2018, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, your first daily dose of happy for this beautiful Friday. And we hope your week's been going as well as it has been for us, or even better. Wouldn't that be great if it was even better than either of us expected? Because then that means you are focusing on what's going on right in your life. And that's the whole game right there. Okay, the show's done. We're done. See you later, Tom.
All right, well, thanks a lot. Let's go enjoy our weekend.
That's right, absolutely. So how you doing? How's your week been going?
Well, it's been one interesting week, I got to admit. I've not had too many weeks like this in my life. But it's cool. Everything's good. I'm just working a lot on allowing myself to feel my emotions in new ways that I haven't ever really done before.
Always
and
good.
So that's been interesting.
Yeah.
And that's how
I've had kind of a similar experience this week in that I've had lots of opportunities to practice what we preach, which is you run into a situation, you don't like it, and you pivot, or you bridge, or you change your attention, or you do something to shift the situation around. And it's a funny thing. I have asked previously for, I want to be able to do that regularly so that I can always do it successfully. And I've gotten lots of opportunities. Isn't that amazing?
And how's it gone?
Well, actually, I'm doing it most of the time. There have been times when I found myself kind of sinking down into that morass of not feeling good. But I've been catching it pretty quickly, and I'm pretty happy about that, because that's, well, just catching it is half the battle right there. And the other half is stopping and doing something about it to turn yourself around, to turn your feeling around. I can remember one particular situation about, a day or two ago, something like that. And Louise and I have both been going through a lot of stuff, particularly with the business. And there was one point where we were meeting, it was kind of lunchtime, and she said, so I know you want to talk about this X situation. I said, yeah, but I just need a break for a second. Just give me like 60 seconds. I need to calm down. And I did. I just needed a break from all the craziness. And I calmed down, like 60 seconds of meditation. And she was kind of right there just doing the same thing. And we took a couple breaths. And then we were able to go on with it. And I'm glad that we did, because first of all, we felt much better. And second of all, the solution we came up with in that little meeting was better than either one of us anticipated we would come up with, because neither one of us had a clue how to solve this particular problem. But calming ourselves down actually enabled us to solve the problem. So I can honestly say I'm seeing tangible results from stopping myself, noticing that I'm on a downward path, letting myself breathe, finding something better to focus on, and then going back at whatever the thing is from a better perspective. I am seeing tangible results that it works every single time.
And what are you mainly doing? You're just stopping
stopping. Just take a moment. Take a breath. There's the old cliche, right? Take a breath. Well, literally, we've been doing that. Just take a breath. 60 seconds of, okay, just relax. It's all going to be okay. Everything's going to work out.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, there really is something to that. I've been doing this thing for about the last 20 years or so called creating sacred space. You've heard of that, right?
I've heard the phrase. I don't really know much about it.
Well, let's say that you and your partner want to have a beautiful Friday evening, and you're not sure what you're going to do, or you said, let's just be home tonight, and let's just do some real communicating with each other. So you get a candle or something, and it's a good way to do it. Get a candle, set it on your coffee table or whatever in between you, and you light the candle with the intention that each of you is going to say that you're going to open that evening as a sacred space for the two of you, where you're going to allow love and all the beautiful feelings of abundance and possibility and appreciation and just the things you would want to share with your partner. You're going to just invite all of that into that evening together. And you're saying that, you're sort of invoking the love of the universe to envelop the two of you in an evening of possibility and appreciation and ease and fun, whatever you guys really want to experience together. Maybe you want to go deep into gazing into each other's eyes, or you want to get really intimate and really feel each other's presence of each other's soul, of each other's heart. So you can open sacred space that way. And I think it's really a cool thing to do because it sets that time aside, just like taking that breath. It just says, let's just open up this whole evening to it being a sacred evening, a really special time. And sometimes then at the end of the evening, when you blow the candle out, you sort of close sacred space, or you take it right with you into the bedroom.
Well, I can't say that we've ever done it with a candle or doing that sacred space routine, but yeah. I think we actually do this. I think we actually do it
ritual.
It's a ritual. There, right. I think we just kind of do it not by any intention of doing sacred space, but just because it's the way we do it. We will literally start, if either one of us wants to get into the sacred space as you're describing, and it really does sound very familiar to what it is that we do, one of us will just look at the other and smile big and say, hi! And that's our signal to each other. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's time to get into a good feeling place where we just spend some quality time together and focus on what it is we really want to focus on. And so the other person says, hey, hi, how you doing? And that becomes our way of lighting the candle, so to speak. And from that point on, it's like the rule is don't let any of this stuff in. Just this is all about our time right now.
Oh, so you got a sort of that tacit agreement between each other.
Yeah. That's what you do. I mean, we never really thought about it in terms of sacred space, but it sounds really similar.
Yeah. Well, some people can't relate to the word sacred either. But I can. I just sort of like the idea that I'm also invoking the unseen realm. I'm really asking for something. I mean, in a way, that's what I do on the podcast. Just like I was doing that this morning before the podcast. I was just saying, let come through me what really needs to be said to whoever's listening. Let it be something that's a blessing to their life and a blessing to our lives. That we will have a discussion that really is uplifting, and it's informative. It opens up our hearts. It opens up our possibilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's certainly a very valuable activity. I can definitely see how it's good to have would you say it, a ritual or a routine?
Yeah, I call it a ritual, sacred ritual, like not in a religious sense as much as just a personal choice that the individuals are making, that the individual's making even to sort of sanctify or make holy that moment, those moments that they are not your ordinary, I'm just, running around doing all the stuff I'm doing, or I'm just relaxing and completely vegging out. Instead, you say, I'm going to have this time be a time to really go deep into this particular feeling or aspect of my life that I want to be sanctified or made special, made holy by invoking, my infinite capacities to be really in touch.
It also sounds like you're establishing it as a habitual pattern. Like habitually from now on, this is our pattern. We're going to do this regularly. We're going to make this part of our everyday life.
Yeah. That's what I did with my wife of 15 years. We would do that on a regular basis. And we had, and then of course, in the Native American tradition, they would burn sage or sweetgrass, or cedar, or, like there were certain, plant substances that were considered to be the plants that sent your energies, your prayer to the unseen realm. And sage is one of the main ones, so there was, when you burn sage, or sweetgrass is another one that they have this amazing, smell, of course, but it was really understood that those things are used to create that sacred space and to say to the spirits that be, that you are really concerned with being aligned at that moment. You really want to be aligned. You want to be in your heart in the most integral way you can be.
Which is really what it's all about anyway, because we're aiming for alignment. We're hoping for it. We're trying for it. We're reaching for it. And so if this becomes a way for us to get there, it's a way of kind of allowing ourselves to go there, then that's powerful. That's wonderful. That's something you want to make habitual, right?
Yeah, and the smoke reminds you of that, like the smell of the sage and the smell of the sweetgrass. they remind you that I am making an extra effort, an extra opening in my life right now to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
receptive, be super receptive to my well-being and to what needs to be understood in this moment.
Yeah, I'm making a point to do it right now, and I want it made really clear to myself, my inner being, any spirit guides, to everybody. Hey, this is my sacred moment. This is my moment where I am going to get myself into that good feeling place. I am going to, invoke the things that I really want to evoke in a big way in my life. I'm going to open myself up in the way that I always wished that I could open myself up throughout the day, but at least I'm going to do it now. And by doing it now, I'm going to just reinforce the pattern, reinforce the habit, reinforce the experience so that it becomes more and more familiar to me and it becomes part of my everyday existence.
And when you do it with another person, it's sort of that thing that, supposedly Jesus said, whenever two or more are gathered together in my name, there I am amongst them. And it's sort of like that sort of thing you're saying, to each other that, we are going to sanctify this time together, this evening we're going to spend or whatever. And, you say, let's have all of Saturday afternoon be that kind of a time. And so you burn the sage, you light the candle or whatever. And then you, when the two of you both decide to do that, in a way, you're taking your morphic fields, the quantum field that we live in, and you're invoking that it be, a really divine time together. I know I'm using a lot of religious terms here, but I guess I'm sort of religious.
That's all
I'm
right.
spiritual. I'm
Hey,
from Boulder. Hey, I can't help it.
it's a law. When you live in Boulder, you must be spiritual. So that's a warning to anyone who's non-spiritual coming to Boulder. Be
I wish.
careful.
Yeah, right.
No, but
Yeah.
seriously, the fact is that we live in a world of source energy. And it's not just this world, everything is source energy. So, I mean, it's not like source energy ever goes away. It's always right there. But the real question is, how well are we connecting to it at any given time? And
Yeah.
really what you're talking about is you're talking about reconnecting consciously with source energy and doing
Yeah.
it in quantities of more than one person at a time.
It's a segment intending too, in a
Yeah.
sense. You're like, I do it on a walk, when I'm going into the forest. Like, I think I said that on another podcast, like, is when I get to a certain place where the street ends, and now there's maybe this little stream runs down and it's full of fragrant vegetation. I'll stop there and I'll say, to all the unseen beauty of the wild, that lives there, that I'll just say, I want to be in my heart in a really good place as I go into this wilderness area, so that I can receive and be receptive. Receive and be receptive. Same
Hmm.
thing. Um,
Funny
when
thing.
I'm out there, I want to be open to allowing in whatever messages want to come to me about life, about how life is precious and life is beautiful. And so, let it come through the birds, let it come through the trees, let it come through the clouds, and everything, that I'm not just out there in some random place, or sometimes I find a beer can somebody threw into the bushes, and I'm thinking, well, I don't think they were in that place, like where they were just out here really feeling like this is a very sacred place. They're sort of just out there drinking a beer, and they don't even think about the fact that throwing that beer can into the bush is not a really very cool thing to be doing.
Yeah. So,
So
okay.
just make
So,
it holy.
so we have a topic today, and I'm trying to ask myself, how does Tom see the topic connect to what we've been talking about so far with these sacred spaces and getting into a connection and so forth? So, Tom, how do you see the connection? I mean, the topic is ambition and hoping for a better future, and it certainly
Yeah.
seems like it could be connected, but I can see a lot of ways to connect that. So, I wonder what you have in mind.
Well, um, having ambition about the things we desire, hoping for a future that it's improvement over what we're experiencing today, and being able to do so in a way that our experience in the present is still, where we live. We live obviously moment by moment by moment,
Mm.
and we might have aspirations for our future to be better because we want more money, we want better health, the usual things, and better relationships, whatever it is, we want our career to be blossoming in the most wonderful way possible. Well, how do we have that ambition and the hope and yet we're still so in the present moment that we really are drinking in the sacredness of the present moment. You might say, the what does it have to tell us? Here we are hoping that we're going to have all these other things happen later down the road, and are we really in the present moment? I suppose the best way for me that happens is that I have a tremendous amount of trust. I mean, when I do, as much as I can have this trust that everything is built moment by moment. The future is going to come, and it's going to be the present too. And so the ambition, the excitement that I have about it, the hope that I have about it is, I like it to not feel that it's because the present is so bad. How can I get into the present in a way that I can be accepting that whatever the present is, yes, it isn't. I still don't have, for example, all the money I want in the bank, or I still don't have the health in my body that I really want to have, or whatever it is, because it seems like it's going to take a while to get there. Maybe you want to lose a lot of weight. You're still really overweight. And so you're saying, well, I really have hope in the future. I will finally lose this weight, but I'm frustrated as hell in the present because I'm still looking in the mirror and I hate what I see.
Yeah.
Well, that's the big trick right there. How can you make the present a holy thing too? Make the present completely wonderful, even though we don't have what we want yet. And that's tricky, I think, when we feel frustrated, right?
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, because when we're frustrated, well, we're out of alignment, right? We're not in a good place. We're in a bad place, and we're trying to get back to it, and we have a hard time sometimes even seeing the direction of where to go, let alone knowing how to get there.
And yet feeling frustrated, is also one of those feelings we can accept, and we can embrace it. Like if you said, okay, I'm going to light a candle and I'm going to invite in all the love of the unseen realm to surround my frustration, this feeling I have of angst, this feeling I have of incompleteness and upset that I'm not where I want to be in my life, but I'm going to hold it in the same way that I would having those things. I think that's a good starting place. And yet you can also then tweak the feeling of frustration and go, well, what is working right? Well, I am sitting here breathing, and actually I don't at this moment have any pain in my body, or I don't need to keep dwelling on the fact that I don't yet have the money I want. I can actually appreciate the fact that I have enough money. I've got food in the refrigerator. I do have what I have. It seems to be to me that's the frustration factor, whether or not I'm focusing on the fact that, well, I feel frustrated and I feel angry and I just can't, and I just don't know what to do about that. And I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think that's the basic foundational struggle that everybody who tries to become deliberate creators faces. I mean, because usually when we come to law of attraction, most of us do so out of some great need or great negative space that we've been in, and we're trying to climb out of some sort of hole. It can be a financial hole, it can be a relationship hole, it can be a health hole, it can be all kinds of things, really. It can be a career hole, it can be both family relationships, it could be just friend relationships, it could be relationships at the office, it can be all kinds of stuff. But the point is, we're trying to climb out of some hole. And when we're trying to climb out of a hole, we're really trying to learn at the worst possible time in one sense, but we're also trying to learn at the best possible time in another sense. I mean, Joel talks a lot about how out of our adversity, out of our darkest spaces, that's when we experience the best growth. And in fact, in his view, one of the worst things you can do is try to kind of cut yourself off from having those negative experiences, those difficult experiences, because ultimately you're cutting yourself off from your best growth. By the same token, when we are in the midst of trying to deal with all this stuff, wanting to go through it for the purpose of having all that great growth that comes from it is probably the last thing on our mind. We're sick and tired of just being in that negative space. We really don't want to have to stay there much longer just so we can learn some great thing.
Well, I also feel like I don't want to continue to repeat a vibration that is going to attract more and more of the same. So, it is like, I want to think of a way to shake up that vibration, like that's why people do tapping, for example. They tap their way, in a sense, out of a bad feeling. Or, you say, okay, I feel awfully frustrated. I've been cooped up in my place for the last 5 hours struggling with this project I'm working on, and I'm just going to get out of here and go for a walk.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a breakup of the pattern, breaking that pattern that we're stuck in.
Yeah.
Because but this topic today, to me, when I was writing it, I was thinking, this is almost like the proverbial age-old plight of man, of wanting to have things that we want in the future and not being content with it the way it is today, because that's sort of what that implies. I mean, that is one aspect of ambition and hoping for a better future. Interestingly, I was listening to some Abraham segments on hope, and just to see some of the things that they say, and I kind of knew what they do say, and that is largely that hope on the ladder of emotions, from going all the way from depression and hopelessness and despair at the bottom of the rung of emotions, and to the top being, say, ecstasy and unlimited bliss. But that when we get to hope, they say that's when the doors of the vortex will just pull you in, once you simply have hope. So, but that's a very interesting thing, that a little bit of hope and a little bit of belief are enough to change your entire life. So if you're really stuck, like they were talking about a person who had arthritis, and about how that person was just complaining about, how can you ever feel good? How can I ever feel good when I'm in arthritic pain 24/7? Like there's no way that I'm going to feel better. And so the person who was asking the question of Abraham in the chair said, what can I tell my friend? And Abraham was saying, just to even have the hope that they're going to get out of that pain at some point is enough to open the doors of their vortex that will let that happen, that will let that begin, that evolution then into that place of being pain-free. And they were saying, and that person can become totally pain-free if they just stick with hope. And I'm thinking, so yeah, hope does have a lot of power.
It certainly does.
Yeah.
And it's a lot lower on the scale than, say, joy or happy. So if you're in that bad place, it's a lot easier to reach hope.
Mm-hmm.
That's a key portion of it, I think, because, like I said, most often we approach this stuff when we're in our worst place. We don't usually say, hey, I'm happy, I'm going to go find out about the law of attraction. So, because we're starting from a place that we're not really in a great place, we need to be able to reach for something we can reach for. That becomes really important. I mean, obviously, sometimes we can't even reach for hope. Sometimes we have to reach for, at least getting pissed off just to rise up the scale a little bit. But hope is usually within some form of reach. It doesn't seem like it's too far out there. So I think that's probably one of the reasons why it's so powerful. Hope combined with gratitude or appreciation, depending on how you want to look at it. I think that combination is probably the strongest one.
Yeah, gratitude and appreciation always are helpful, aren't they?
Mm.
But hope and belief too, like a little bit of belief. I know when I say to myself, I mean, somebody was asking me a bunch of questions yesterday about this. Life coach I'm working with was actually asking me a bunch of questions about that. And I was realizing that it really is my normal default state now. I mean, I guess I've sort of created that by my work with law of attraction and just working with my life, where I'm always have a certain resilience that's there, no matter how much I might, like she was asking me, like questions like, what are you feeling right now about your life? And I was saying, well, I'm feeling some anger and some sadness, and I'm feeling some frustration and some, those things. And I said, and I'm feeling hope, and I'm feeling belief and possibility, and I'm feeling excitement about what's possible, and I'm feeling my potential. And anyway, so I've noticed that a number of times in the last several months, when people have asked me or been talking to somebody about where I'm at it's often a combination of things that might sound really negative, but then there's all those positive things there too. So it's like they exist simultaneously, that even though, yeah, I'm kind of angry and frustrated, I'm also, and not all the time, but when I am, I also feel very hopeful and I believe everything's going to work out. And then if she probed deeper, and I found that I also felt, like she said, what do you think about who you are as a person, And I said, well, I feel like I'm an infinite being with unlimited potential, and so I, started waxing eloquent on all these things that make my life so full of possibility.
Yeah.
And so I realized I hold a lot of things at once inside
Isn't that
myself.
something? We're,
Mm-hmm.
we're almost, I don't want to say we're creatures of contradiction because we really aren't, but we are paradoxes very often
Mm-hmm.
because we carry these seemingly contradictory things at the same time. And we do it, well, I won't say effortlessly because often there's a lot of effort involved. We do it consistently. Let's put it that way. We do it a lot. We're familiar with doing it. It's a common habit with us, and we're so familiar that we almost don't even think that we're doing it. And yet we
Mm-hmm.
are. We are
Yeah.
holding on to two things that really don't work nicely together. They don't play well in the same sandbox.
Yeah, well, like I've heard it said, you can't really be in both places at the same
Not
time.
really,
I
no.
can't be in sadness and hope and belief. Well, maybe I can. I don't know, but
Well, you could try,
seems
but I'm not sure
seems
it's a good idea.
well, it seems like I'm in both places, because but really maybe I'm oscillating, like one
Yeah,
moment
right.
I'm hopeful, the next moment I'm sad. But I think the thing for me is that I don't feel overcome anymore by debilitating emotions, that end up feeling just devastated. I just don't. I'm not willing to buy into the fact that I need to be that hopeless or that despairing. That it could happen. I could have something. If I keep dwelling on how bad I feel, I think that's what does it. Actually, is the
Mm,
dwelling there. But sometimes we do need to feel, like Joel was saying, you do need to feel the stuff that you're feeling and not be in denial or always saying, I got to get out of this feeling. I got to get out of this feeling. Because sometimes the feeling it needs to be felt in order to sort of come full circle with it. And feeling the feeling completely sometimes I think does free us from having to ever be there again. And maybe that's some of what's happened to me. I got so low in my various dark nights of the soul I've been through in the last 8 years, ever since my divorce. I've had experienced a number of times of being really low, to the point that I actually, was started to finally think about suicide or something like that a number of years ago. But then realizing, well, I'm not going to do that. But it also, I felt, that the door had opened to that, even to that room. And I never had ever opened that door my whole life before. So that was a real low point. But then anymore, I don't even go near that point.
mm.
I sometimes might say, am I really understanding what the heck I'm doing here? Like, how confused am I?
Well, it is a funny thing because we do have multiple ways to go at this kind of stuff. On the one hand, like you're describing, sometimes it can be very, very useful to just dig into the thing, whatever the thing is, whatever the resistance point is that we've uncovered. Even if we don't know what it is, sometimes it is worth it to go into it because without going into it, we aren't going to shake it. On the other hand, there are also times, this is something Cindy and I were talking about the other day, there are other times where you don't need to go into it. And
Mm-hmm.
probably the best test is to see what happens when you just don't go into it. If you can, just try to change your attention, change your focal point, and in many cases, it'll just go away because it just kind of lost its power because you're no longer paying any attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what it really comes down to. How much attention are we paying, sort of subconsciously, to something? There are certain things we hang on to. I'm not even sure subconscious is the right word, but let's just say not in our present moment of consciousness. We're not holding on to it there, but we're holding on to it. And
Mm-hmm.
in doing so, we make it impossible to let go of it. We make it impossible for the resistance to dissipate or go away or whatever it needs to do to make us feel better. those are the times
Mm-hmm.
when I think it's really worthwhile diving into it and taking it apart and asking it questions and doing all the things that we do to dissipate it. So I think it really comes down to what's your particular situation. If your situation is one where you can literally just say, "I'm not going there. I'm going to focus on what makes me feel better," and it goes away. Great. You didn't even have to find out what it was. It was gone. That's all you needed to
Mm-hmm.
know. But on the other
Mm-hmm.
hand, if you do that and it isn't going away and it just persists and keeps coming back and it's frustrating you because it keeps coming back, that's probably a time to dig into it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that statement I said before, which welcome it at your fire, that,
Welcome at your fire, right?
yeah, just like say, okay, we're all sitting around here this evening, all these parts of myself, and here comes this giant monster, that wants to sit with you too. And it's like oh, this is one of my feelings. This is my feeling of hopelessness, or something. And then, you welcome it and say, you're as welcome as the feeling of joy. Let's find out what you have to say, and, because if it's, if it really is something that's persisting and you're coming back, or you're finding that no matter what you do to try to have what you want in your life, your ambition is just not there, or your hope for the future, you just can't get there. Well, sometimes you just got to face the fact that there's something there that you just feel friggin' sad about, or you just feel very disappointed deep inside. So you own that disappointment. You sort of grieve it. You feel the pain of the fact that it was really disappointing that I still don't have the money that I want after all these years of trying to have it. Or I really feel sad that I still have these symptoms in my body, and I can't get rid of this pain. It just keeps on being in my body. Why is it
Hmm.
still in my body? And you just feel that, God, I hate this, and you sort of allow yourself to feel how angry you are about it and how sad you are about it. And then ideally, then it can begin to dissipate. You can then say, well, now, I've felt that really deeply, and I guess I'm ready to get up and go make breakfast, or I'm ready to to sort of to sort of get out my appreciation journal and write about the things that are working really well for me. I'm tired of feeling the grief around that.
Right? Yeah.
I'm ready to like do something that is uplifting for myself. And but sometimes I guess we've got to take those steps out of those dark places when we're ready to, and start feeling the light returning, you know, and open sacred space and say, I'm going to light a candle, I'm going to burn a little sage, and I'm going to ask the unseen realm to bless me with a beautiful day today, that even in spite of the fact that I feel disappointed about, my inability to lose this weight, I'm still going to I'm going to sanctify this day as a beautiful experience, even if I sometimes feel bad. How can I also feel good? How can I also open up the doors to my possibilities?
Those possibilities are really what we were talking about. The topic, ambition and hoping for a better future. When we say hoping for a better future, we're really saying, I want to be in a better future than I'm in right now. So let's take it to the next step, right? Okay, now we're looking at the stuff that is in the way. We've identified a resistance level, right? And we've invited it to the fire. Hey, come on over, sit down, have a marshmallow.
Yeah.
So we're enjoying the fact that we've had the resistance over for dinner, and wait, let's have a little chat here. And in the process of having the chat, we find a way to let go. Well, what we're really saying is that's how we're having a better future. So now the question becomes, how do we do that regularly?
Yeah, well, one way is tapping. I mean that's definitely something that I'm practicing right now. It's a new thing. I did it years ago, but I'm starting to do it again, and I think it's pretty cool because you can, as you tap, you can say things like, well, even though I still, when I look in the mirror, I don't like the body that I have, even though I find that I keep going to the cupboard and eating those same potato chips that I know are the cause of my keeping this weight on, even though I'm so upset eating this diet of celery and green drinks, and still I know that I'm on a good path. I know that I can lose this weight. I know, so as you're tapping, you're saying all these things to yourself, I know that I have the strength within me to keep on eating in a way that even feels good to me, even though I'm eating foods that aren't my favorite foods. They aren't brownies and potato chips, but I can enjoy eating my soups and my salads, and I can make delicious dressings. And last night I had a really awesome salad that I put chicken in, and the whole thing only had 400 calories. And whatever our particular thing that we're dealing with, we can tap our way into better and better feelings, and into allowing that subconscious to let go of the extreme resistance we have around our anger, because a lot of times conditions persist because of a really strong emotion we have. And as that emotion begins to dissipate, I think then we start to open up our possibilities.
No, quite possibly. I mean, there's certainly a lot of people have had a lot of success with tapping. I know my own experience is not quite the same, perhaps, as others, and I also have a little bit of resistance to tapping itself that I've talked about before. Basically, because on some level, some subconscious level, I kind of associate tapping with hitting myself. So I don't really like that word, so to speak. But what I've done instead is what I call touching. Just touch the spot. I don't have to tap it. I don't have to keep pushing against it or hitting against the forehead or hitting against the side of the eye or whatever. I can just touch it. So I'll just touch each one of them. And
I do it really soft too. I barely touch.
And when I think of it that way, then what I'm really thinking about is this is just a way for me to help focus on the letting go part. That's the way I see it. Now, I know that's not what the theory of tapping is, but that's the way I see it and experience it. For me, it's empowering me to let go, and that's really what my goal in life is. My goal is to learn how I am going to let go, not what some technique is that's going to show me to let go. Although I do learn the techniques because they help me to let go, but the goal is for me to let go. I mean, ultimately, I want to get to the point where I just say, you know what? I'm letting go of that. Okay, I've just let go. It's gone. That to me is the ultimate technique. But you don't get there right away. And that's where things like tapping come in so handy. Tapping and affirmations and vision boards and meditation and all the other stuff that we do to learn how to let go of stuff. But ultimately what we're trying to do is just let go. And however we get there is really almost not important.
And there's also the school of thought that says you also want to just sit with the feeling that doesn't feel comfortable, and so there's a heart meditation, for example, that I've talked about and that I do with clients and with myself, which is, just put one hand on my heart and maybe I'm sitting, maybe I'm laying down, and I just try to feel whatever's there, and accept that whatever the feeling is inside myself. And maybe sometimes I'll also notice, well, I've got one hand on my heart, but I've got a tremendous pain in my gut that's because of fear, that I have about my future or something. So put a hand on the place in the body that hurts, that where I feel it. Now that pain can be anywhere in the body. You could have a headache, you could have a pain in your knee or something, but you put your hand where the pain is, and knowing that what you're doing is you're letting the body's wisdom evolve and mutate, you might say, for it to transform. But you're not just looking for complete relief. You're looking for the message that it has for you also. Like if that feeling is there, we did a program on this recently, if the feeling is in my body, then that's my emotional guidance system, and it's showing me something, it's telling me something that my source self wants me to know is being communicated through that pain. And if that pain continues to return day after day, I think it's my body telling me something. Like Abraham talks about it. The pain in your body is the final way that life is trying to show you that you're not really getting the message.
Yeah, I mean, apparently they've been trying to tell us in some other ways too. Inner being messages have been coming through. Well, let's do it with the twitch of the nose, and we're going to put up the sign on the billboard, and we're going to make this person come into their lives. They're not getting the message. Time to go to sickness.
Yeah, isn't that weird? And so, sort of like the emotional guidance system will do a lot to get us to notice what's going on. And it isn't always, I think that's one reason I picked this topic today, because I wanted to sort of say, how often do I run? How often do we run towards the future and try to like psych ourselves up with ambition that is actually running away from the present moment where something's going on? You know, you know what I mean? Like trying so hard to project a better future that we're not even accepting the fact that the present might be teaching us something, might be telling us something through the feelings that we're having, that we're trying to run away from the feeling of sadness or the feeling of disappointment so strongly that we're not taking the message it has for us.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, that's why I said that my goal is always to get to the point where I can just let go of the resistance. I mean,
Okay.
not that I get there first. I usually have to go through one of these other methods. I usually have to go through one of these methods to get there first. But I'm hoping over time, as I get better and better at this, I can get right to the resistance point and just let go of it. And one of the reasons I want to do that is there are a lot of ways that we resist things. We resisted all those earlier messages that came along before we got sick. We resisted the billboard. We resisted the friend. We resisted the twitchy nose. We resisted all that stuff. I want to stop resisting it. I want to get the message the first time. I don't want to have to wait until the last moment. So for me, the two go hand in hand. Getting to the point where I can let go of the resistance at, basically on my own command is the same place as being in the place where I am receiving the message the first time, or like within the first couple times. So I'm not having to get the 2x4 to the side of the head, because I don't like 2x4s to the side of the head. They hurt.
I know. I'm the same way.
Funny thing.
Yeah. So it's resistance, it's a lot of it is we're resisting what is coming up. And one of the recent podcasts we talked about, can we just hold those things in our heart and surround them with love? You might say, just say to myself, well, even though I'm feeling sad, I can still surround that with love. I can surround it with a sense of acceptance and allowing, like you say, just letting go of the resistance I have to the fact that I feel sad. And okay, that's what I feel.
And I'm finding the more that I'm doing that kind of thing too, the more that the resistances melt away quicker.
Yeah,
I am finding that a lot. Wendy was telling a story the other day about, I don't remember what the exact story was, but the gist of it was that she had this experience. It had a really difficult situation in it, and within a matter of a split second, she realized the situation, the experience, the message, the forgiveness, and the relief in 0.3 seconds.
She got all of that.
She got all of it at once, which was the first time that she said she'd ever had that. I can't ever say I've ever had that I can remember, where it all happened. The whole range of the experience happened in that compressed time frame. But I'm also thinking, you know what? That probably can become the norm, where we get all of it done at once, or seemingly at once, instead of having to stretch it out for days and weeks at a time.
Yeah, I think you're right. I've had that happen a lot, as I've mentioned before, when I'm in bed and I wake up like at 4 a.m. for no apparent reason. And then I start getting all these messages, you might say, and often they'll show up in my body and say, I have this place on my right side that gets really sore, in my stomach area. And I feel like it's where I store anxiety, and that place will come alive, and I'll wake up with this tremendous pain in my side. And I've had times where I've mentioned this before, where I just put my hand on that and I breathe. I just take those big breaths, and it just begins to transform. Or sometimes I'll even say to myself, what is this? What does it want to tell me? And what is it for me to let go of it? What's it like if I was to, even though the feeling is really strong and it feels like it actually, I don't know if I said this before, what I once had to go to the emergency room because of it. Wow. It got so extreme that I thought I was going to get rid of it and it wouldn't go away. And finally I realized I got to go to the emergency room. I was in so much ridiculous pain and nothing I could do would take it away.
Wow.
And after 4 hours in the emergency room, they said it was a kidney stone, but I don't think it was because I had had two kidney stones before, and this was really different. It was in a different spot, and it just didn't have that same thing. And I could tell, were having a really hard time diagnosing it.
Mm.
They never did a CAT scan. They did an ultrasound and an X-ray,
Uh-huh.
and yet I could see a direct correlation between my anxiety at that particular time that morning because I was just so backed up about my money situation
Ah.
about 5 years ago, and I really saw that this stuff is really intense if it's not, really accepted.
Mm-hmm.
When I start getting pain in that area, I just really ask, what's going on? What do I need to notice here?
It's a good
What is it
question.
trying to tell me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good question because when you ask the question, well, first of all, you've done the most important part of all. You recognized the signal.
Mhm.
That's probably the hardest step is learning when to recognize that you've gotten a signal, a sign of some kind, or a message, or whatever you want to call it. You
Mhm.
recognized it, and you said, "Ah, I know what to do next. I'm going to ask the question," and so you did. But the most
Yeah.
important
Or
part is you
even,
recognized it, and that to me, that's like this is where you turn around and you pat yourself on the back, so to speak, because that's the hardest part, right there, just noticing it.
yeah. And any pain in the body is that. I mean, in my mind, it's like, it's a, it's something that's trying to tell me something. And, for me to put my hand on it if I can and breathe into it and ask, okay, what is it that I mean, last night I had a couple of squares of chocolate. Actually, I had 4 squares of chocolate, which to me is more than I should have. I usually can get away with 2, maybe. So I had 4, maybe I had 5, and it felt really good to eat the chocolate, But I knew that I was pushing the envelope with my body because my body tends to react really badly to sugar,
uh,
and so. But then a little later, I started getting earaches and sinus headache, and I said, "Oh, of course, it's because I had the chocolate, And I felt bad that I had the chocolate, but I didn't do the thing. And now I'm reminding myself, what if I would have asked myself, what is my body telling me? Now, is it just telling me, hey, dummy, don't eat that sugar, or is it something else that I could learn, by just sitting with it and breathing into it and asking my body what it is it wants to tell me? But the reason I brought all this up was because when I do it sometimes in the morning, like at 4 a.m., when I might have that experience, I've experienced what Wendy's talking about, where as soon as I put my hand there and start to really feel into what it has to tell me, and it does start to shift, and I've literally watched it move to other parts of my body, like goes up. Suddenly, I have a pain in my neck, and then I start to rub that. I put my hand up there, and it feels really good in a certain way. It's painful, and then it moves down, and all of a sudden it's in my arm. My whole arm just like aches. And I've watched these things just talk to me, almost like they teach me something about each section of that experience. It's an experience of letting go. It
mm,
shows me what letting go feels like, and
yeah,
how what it is to let go of this deep seated anxiety that's now willing to transform. And as I let go of it, I've actually come to a place where my body becomes completely pain free by, say, 4:30, and I go back to sleep. I fall completely asleep because I dealt with it, and
that's a
that's
very
so
cool thing.
interesting.
Well, yeah,
It's
that's
so
you're taking
interesting.
advantage of the fact that in the middle of the night you are at your most open, right?
Yes, most receptive.
Your most receptive place. That's a fabulous approach to do. I mean, because I know it's just as easy to wake up in the middle of the night and start fretting about something. You can do either one. It's really up to you.
Right.
But
Or you
you
go get
chose to
an
work on feeling
Advil,
better. Yeah, get an Advil, whatever.
get
Yeah,
a Tylenol. Yeah.
yeah.
Or you just sort of lay there and you can't go back to sleep, and the pain gets worse and worse. Or what happened to me that one morning, that morning, that pain had started like at 4 a.m., but by 7 or 8 a.m., I was in the emergency room because it
Wow.
just continued to grow and grow and grow. And I couldn't see what to do about that because my level of fear around money was so great that I couldn't stop feeling that anxiety. And no matter how, and I even said to myself, I'm just going to let go of this. I'm just going to let this completely dissolve. And I couldn't, it was
Hmm.
really weird.
Yeah. Well, that's why we were like you were talking about before. Sometimes you gotta delve into it. Sometimes you
Yeah.
gotta just pick it up, hold it, turn around your hands, ask it some questions, say, "Who are you? What's your message for me? What's this all about?" You know?
Yeah, that was a $7,000 mistake that morning. seven
Well, of
thousand
course it
dollars to
was.
spend
You
four
had money
hours in the
issues.
emergency room.
You had money issues
Yeah,
on your
I had
mind. What else
money.
could it be, right?
Yeah. What was so funny in the long run is that it didn't cost me a cent.
Oh,
The
cool.
entire thing, and I never got a single bill from anybody, from my provider or from the hospital that I went to, which was happened to be a hospital close to me, which is out of my coverage, which was out of my coverage of the insurance that I had. But I had to go because I couldn't get it. I could barely drive there as it was. And I always thought, well, the other shoe is going to drop. I'm going to get this big bill, and my share is going to be at least $2,500, I'm sure. And it never ever came, and I never had to pay a cent. And I thought, well, that was a pretty interesting
Yeah, I
experience.
wonder what happened there. I mean, because you must have changed something in your thought pattern so that the universe would be influenced to take it away, so to speak.
Yeah, I guess. And also I've never repeated that problem in my body. And I've noticed several times when that pain in that area has grown, starting to grow, that I know how now to always catch it in the early stages.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I
It's
think,
always a big point with all this, is catching things in the early stages,
yeah,
right?
yeah, catching it in the early stage, getting into that good feeling place. I mean, they're all pretty much part of the same initial thing to do. Noticing it. Noticing is huge. Once you notice it, then you can do something. Once you've noticed it, then you know you need to get to the better feeling place, and you know you need to start delving into it. You know you need to figure out what the message is, and you can take your second step, whatever the second step is. First
Mm-hmm.
step's the key one in my mind. I mean, and you did it. You actually, even though you went to the emergency room that time, you recognized at some point thereafter, maybe immediately, maybe months, I don't know how long, but at some point you recognized you didn't want to continue that pattern anymore, and you made a change. We may not know ever what that change was, but you shifted in some way.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and in that shift, you not only shifted the pattern away from having all of these monetary debacles, for lack of a better word, continue to happen, but you also shifted around so that the current debacle went away.
Mm-hmm.
And you may not even know how you did it, but you did. You did it through a change in focus, a change in what you were thinking about, a change in what you were feeling about.
Yeah. For several years, I had so much anxiety around not having enough money that I actually had a lot more than I even have now. But I've changed my whole, that whole thing through the law of attraction. And the way I did it was I had to, because every morning I'd wake up with so much angst that for me to even start my day, I had to do a lot of different things. I had a little altar, and I would open sacred space, and I would burn sage, and I would say my prayers to the unseen realm, and I would read Abraham stuff, and I would do my appreciation journal, and I would do my segment intending for the day. And then throughout the day, I would stay on that kind of stuff. I would be doing things throughout the whole day that helped me. And what happened was that over time, it just all dissipated. It was like that
Hmm.
word you love so much. It just dissipated through the continual application of listening to Abraham. I would put big Abraham quotes around the house each day. I would even sometimes print out a new one, which one today really resonates with me, to stay on track, to always be reminding myself that my life moment by moment is my choice. And that if I want to feel good, it's always in my capability to feel good. And so just sort of challenging in a way all the things my mind wanted to say about how it was hopeless, and how I was, stuck, and how I'm going to stay stuck, and just to constantly challenge that within my own self through, you know, writing down the things I appreciated, making a segment intention that my day was going to be good, that I, had that up on my mirror. My dominant intention today is to feel good no matter what. I'm choosing to feel good. And in a way, I was overriding the level of pain I felt, but it felt like that's what I had to do to survive.
Sure, yeah. And actually, I was kind of chuckling at it, but I was realizing that a listener could hear what you said there a moment ago, and say, "Well, wait a minute, he had more money than he has now." and he was
Mhm.
suffering then. So how is it that doing all these practices as he described helped him financially? It looks to me like that his financial situation got worse, not better. Now, of course, that's not the way I'm seeing it, but I can see how somebody might look at it that way. And my answer would be, well, you had a pretty big negative momentum going on there. You had a momentum of issues with money that were really holding you back and that had built up over a long period of time and were sending
Yeah.
you on a really bad downward spiral. It can take time to reverse that kind of momentum. You were doing the
Hmm.
things you needed to do in order to reverse it, but that doesn't mean that the prior stuff you've been focusing on just kind of went away. It was still happening. It was just that you were cutting it down and reducing it and slowing it and finding resistances and letting go of them. It's a process. It's a process that we have to go through sometimes. But especially if we have a lot of momentum built up in the other direction. But it can be done, and you've done it so that now, even though right now you're at a point perhaps where you don't have as much money as you had before, now you've stabilized things. Now you've basically reversed most or perhaps all of that negative momentum. Now you can get the momentum going in the other direction.
Yeah, I've reversed most of it, and I don't let myself ever dwell on the money situation. I just always feel like
Right.
I have enough, and it's sort of like, if I wanted to lose weight and I just was constantly dwelling on the fact that I have too much weight on my body, excuse me, and looking in the mirror and always focusing on that, then of course, it's the same with money. It's just going to become an exacerbated problem. It's
Exactly.
not going to go away. It's whatever you think about and focus on over and over again and feel bad about is going to attract more of it. There's a point at which, though, I think what I was doing with the money thing was I was feeling really deeply how bad it felt in me to be worried about money. And so I was fully feeling the feeling. I couldn't not feel it because it was so strong.
Mm,
And then, but that gradual working on, okay, yes, I see how bad I feel now. What do I want to do next?
right. Right.
And that's the thing, like I want to get out that appreciation journal and write all the things I appreciate about my life. And once I started to get into the realm of how many things I appreciate by practicing that day after day, then my life started to become a realm of appreciation. I started to feel, those things without having to, be overwhelmed by the negative feelings. I developed a new habit.
Yeah, and you reversed a major ship. I mean that to me is the metaphor I like to use to think about these situations where we have a huge amount of negative momentum built up, momentum in the wrong direction. It's like a freight bearing ship that crosses the ocean, delivering whatever huge amounts of whatever it is,
Uh-huh.
and those ships are gigantic, and they take a long time to get up to speed, and they take a lot of time to slow down. I mean, I remember learning at one point, I think it takes 10 miles to slow one of those ships down to a stop in a harbor. So they have to begin stopping 10 miles before they get to the harbor, just so that the momentum is slowed enough. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a lot of momentum reversing going on there.
Uh-huh.
Well, the
Uh-huh.
same thing goes on in our lives with stuff that we've been living with, in a negative way for a long, long time. There's just a lot of momentum build up. It takes a while.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just slam on the brakes. It doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And got to let yourself feel those things, and then continue to apply the methods of cutting the new grooves. And that's what tapping's about. That's what the
Hmm.
appreciation journal about. Segment intending. It's all about cutting new grooves in our neural pathways, you might say, creating new neural pathways.
Absolutely. Well, we got a little over a minute left, including the music, so we got to be quick. Three
Ah,
reminders. If you haven't yet become a subscriber, become a subscriber. All the instructions are on the homepage at loatoday.net. Make sure that you post on your social media that you've been listening so that other people know, and include the phrase loatoday.net in your post. Feel free to call in sometime. We had a caller yesterday, Tom. Yesterday morning, Joel and I took a call, which was great. We hadn't had
awesome.
one in a while, so that was a lot of fun. So those are the
Yeah.
three main messages. And the fourth message, of course, is you. Tom, how does somebody reach out to you very quickly?
They can go to my website, which is youarejoy.com, youarejoy.com, and there's a free half-hour consultation you can have with me to see whether or not you might want to do some coaching with me or just to address a problem in your life. But it's in my menu there,
Very
free
good.
half-hour coaching.
All right. Well, Tom, have a great weekend. I look forward to talking to you on Monday.
Yeah, well, you too.
And we'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.